my honor to reflect on the facts and to acknowledge that we are conducting our business today in treaty territory that is dish with one spoon territory. The Anishinaabe people and the Haudenosaunee people came together in a treaty to share this land, and it is part of the constitutive basis on which we have any right, the rest of us, to be on this land. I'd also like to acknowledge where I do my work, which is in the Lekwungen territory on the west coast of the University of Victoria. And now I would like to turn to Leanne. Simpson is offering a greeting to us, and to launch this process, I'd like to offer you a small token, tobacco, to show that we start this in good spirit, and sweet grass to know that it is not just us here, but all our relations, the context in which we do these things today. So thank you very much for coming. And in the same spirit, Glen, the star of the show today, it's a youth that feels a bit possessive about Glen, and it was a pleasure to meet him before he was a rock star. And so in the same spirit of wanting to start in a good spirit, the settler offers you, on behalf of our organization, tobacco and sweet rice. Thank you very much.
Here.
Miigwech.
All right. Well, I was going to introduce you guys, but just quickly say a couple things with the book prize. And then, my name is Susan Spronk. I'm from Studies in Political Economy. So we're here today to celebrate the book prize, which is offered to us by a donation made by Rick Davidson, who's very important in left-leaning publishing in Canada. So just to quickly thank the people who are the members of this book prize committee, some of whom are here today. That's Gillian Crease, Harriet Friedman, Sam Gindon, Warren Magnuson, and Mel Watkins, who are the ones who selected Glen's very distinguished book for this honor. Also, Donald Schwartz, I want to hear is Harriet, one of our book prize members who just walked in. And also Donald, who helped coordinate the committee. And so I'll just quickly introduce you, for those who don't know, unless you want to introduce yourselves. So Leanne Simpson is an Indigenous writer, musician, and academic. I'm sure she's known to many of you in this room today. She's notable as an author of several books and papers on Indigenous issues in Canada, and for her work with the I Don't Know More movements of 2012 and beyond. And she's currently the Distinguished Visiting Professor at Ryerson University. And then also, I think it goes without saying that the brevity of the introduction is often inversely related, or related directly, with the fame of the people who are being presented. So that goes for both Leanne and Glen. And Glen Coulthard currently teaches in the First Nations Studies program at the Department of Political Science, and in the in the First Nations Studies program at UBC, University of British Columbia in Vancouver. He's also written and published numerous articles and chapters in the areas of contemporary political theory, Marxism, anarchism, and postcolonialism. His work on Friends, Phenomenon, the Politics of Recognition first won the Contemporary Political Theory's annual award for the best article of the year. That was in 2007. And more recently, his book that we're honoring today, Red Skin, White Masks, Rejecting the Codal Politics of Recognition, which is published by University of Minnesota Press, was the winner of the Frantz Fanon Outstanding Book from the Caribbean Philosophical Association, as well as the Canadian Political Science Association's C.D. McPherson Prize for work in political theory in Canada, and was also recently featured in the symposium that's going to be published this year, I think, Glenn, in Historical Materialism.
So published last year.
Well, published last year. I haven't seen it yet, so my university doesn't have a subscription. Anyway, that's a whole other issue. And I think it's particularly fitting that we scheduled this book prize to be presented last year, but we needed to delay it till this year. But it's particularly fitting since it's the 150th anniversary of two things. One which I'm very much more excited to talk about than the other, which is the anniversary of the publishing of Karl Marx's magnum opus, Capital. And then the other events, which I have much more ambiguous feelings about, especially residing on unceded Algonquin territory in Ottawa, where I teach. And that is the 150th anniversary of Canada, or the nation now known as Canada. And so it's wonderful to have Glen here to open the conference because, of course, this is the crossing of two historical events. And Glen's book is a fantastic book that my students love. There's a great thirst right now among settlers as well for works that integrate different ways of knowing and also challenge Marxism and sort of breaking the boundaries of the traditional political economy. So welcome to you both, and I hand it over to Leanne. We look forward to this great news. Thanks so much.
Hi friends. Welcome to Kinagichi Anishinabek Oguming and welcome to Gichi Anjikewin, also known as Toronto. Gichi Anjikewin means big portage, and it refers to a travel route that connects Lake Ontario to Lake Simcoe just north of here. I am Mississauga Anishinabek, or Michisagik Anishinabek, and our home is the north shore of Lake Ontario. Michisagik means at the mouths of the rivers, and this is the name that Mississauga comes from. I'm so honored to be in Gichi Anjikewin today. The Haudenosaunee also hold deep connections to this place and to this lake, and I'm thankful for the brilliance and strength of my Haudenosaunee relations. I'm also grateful for the Wendat and all their relationships to this place, and really to all of these Indigenous nations for making this place such a rich site of diplomacy for thousands and thousands of years. We collectively hold a vast body of intelligence regarding how different nations can live meaningful lives collectively and individually while nurturing the sanctity of the lands and waters that are a part of us. Our peoples have been contributing to the economic, political, and most importantly in this context, the intellectual fabric of this place long before colonial institutions shows up. And our intellectual history, presence, and scholarship within these walls, and more importantly, outside of these walls, is valid, significant, rigorous, and vital to humanity. I also want to acknowledge and affirm the vital presence, contribution, and brilliances of the Black community in Toronto and in Kinagichi Anishinabek Oguming. This community is and has been a beautiful force in this place since the late 1700s. I've learned a tremendous amount from Black scholars, writers, activists, artists, and visionaries in this community, both inside and outside of the university, regarding anti-Blackness, white supremacy, capitalism, heteropatriarchy and gender violence, slavery, dispossessions, resistance, and building other worlds. I am thankful for their intellectual labor and unwavering commitment to eradicate the violences that both of our communities face in their different manifestations and to build the alternative. I have learned a tremendous amount from my colleagues at Toronto universities about the dilemma of working across, within, and against the anti-Black formation of the university. And that's a quote from Ronaldo Walcott in the introduction of his phenomenally work, Zero Returns. And finally, I'd like to acknowledge the strength and persistence of the Indigenous community at Ryerson. The Indigenous staff, faculty, and students are working so very hard to make this community a site of Indigenous brilliance. I am so proud of the activism of Indigenous and Black students at Ryerson. I see you. The university we're at today is named after Egerton Ryerson, who was a very prominent white man and Methodist minister and missionary in the mid-1800s, and who played an influential role in the fields of politics, religion, art, sciences, and education. Canada celebrates Ryerson for establishing a free and compulsory state education system in Canada. He is also the architect of the residential school system. And in 1847, as an expert, Ryerson was asked by the Department of Indian Affairs for his advice on industrial or residential schools for Indigenous children. And he wrote, "I understand the end proposed to be making of pupils industrious farmers, and that learning is provided for and pursued only so far as it will contribute to that end." I am a member of Alderville First Nation, the site of the first industrial and residential school in Canada, the Alwick Industrial School that ran from 1838 to 1966. I am a descendant of the Methodist Mission of Grape Island, and so I do not celebrate this white man. Ryerson's intellectual and political ideas have played an active and violent role in the dispossession and assimilation of my people, my family, and me. Colonizers wanted and continue to want access to land and natural resources. Residential and industrial schools were designed to break the intimate attachment Indigenous peoples have for our lands so that it is easier to remove our bodies from our lands to build cities, pipelines, and capitalist economies. Residential schools were designed to remove Indigenous life from Indigenous land. They were designed to attack Indigenous bodies that house the relationships that make up our political orders, bodies that are our political orders. They were designed to desecrate Indigenous families and therefore our political systems, because family and community is where our children learn to embody our ethics, politics, and governance. They were designed to destroy our spectrum of genders into a colonial gender binary and to eliminate the diversity of sexual and relationship orientations that were the fabrics of our nations. Residential schools were designed to be institutions of genocide. They were designed to plant the seeds of capitalism, gender violence, homophobia, and white supremacy into our communities, to infect us with complex trauma that spans generations. This is white supremacy deployed in the name of genocide. And these were not the views of just one influential man. This is not just the racism of the time. This is not in the past. This is the context within which we find ourselves today, here, despite the neoliberal and symbolic gesturing that things are different. This also did not just impact my family, my community, and my nation. It also impacted the families and the communities that make up the Dene Nation, even though Denende is 5,000 kilometers from Kinagatchi and Anishinaabe, And so to me, it is tremendously significant that the winner of Studies in Political Economy book prize is Dene political theorist Glen Coulthard with his phenomenal work, Red Skin, White Masks, a book that has also won the Canadian Political Science Association C.D. McPherson Prize and the Franz Fanon Outstanding Book Award from the Caribbean Philosophical Association. I am so very, very proud of Glen and this book. There is no other work that has had a more profound influence on me as a scholar, an artist, an educator, an activist, and most importantly, as an Anishinaabe. We know Glen's scholarship to be careful, meticulous, thorough, and rigorous. We know him as a political theorist with a decisive ability to construct analytical intervention. We know this book to be an uncompromising indictment of the politics of recognition, reconciliation, and the violence and ongoing relationship of the colonizer to the colonized. But it is a mistake to think of Glen as just a smart Indian who understands Marx. It is a racist nod to white supremacy to position this scholar as an Indigenous academic that can finally fully intellectually engage with the very best of the field's political theorists, because it erases and obfuscates thousands and thousands of years of Dene intellectualism that has given birth to Glen, his work, and this book. Intellectual practices that are theoretical, rigorous, ethical, international, and continuously generated, embodied, amplified, and lived through the complex processes of grounded normativity. Intellectual practices that have delivered the Dene people and their homeland through the most horrific kinds of white violence at the hands of the colonizers. Intellectual and political practices that have consistently engaged in deep reciprocity and promoted the sanctity of Denende for the coming generations. Intellectual and political practice that not only reject capitalism at its core, but have given life to thousands of years of living the Dene alternative. Intellectual practices that have endlessly contributed to the body of fourth world theory, despite being virtually unknown unknown to scholars unfamiliar with Dene political history and Dene political theory. Red Skin, White Masks very clearly has resonated with the scholars in this room and beyond. And to me, this is significant because this is Indigenous writing on Indigenous terms. I have also had the tremendous honor of witnessing Glen share his work with his people in his homeland, Chief Dragi's territory of the Kaitcho region of Dene. I've seen Glen explain this work in a language and in a manner that is fundamentally Dene, gentle and tough, careful and expansive, to uncles and cousins, elders, hunters, Dene theorists, political leaders from the 1970s, and current chief and councils, and my favorite, a group of young Dene feminists. I've watched his people connect with the analysis of recognition, resentment, and the pitfalls of reconciliation, Marx and Fanon, as they live out as best they can Dene-grounded normativity in a deeply meaningful way. I've watched these non-Indigenous theories resonate within Dene-grounded normativity. At its core, this book is reflective of Dene history, Dene resistance, Dene mobilizations, Dene realities, and Dene worlds. In essence, the Dene first recognized themselves and their experiences in this book. For Indigenous scholars, the most critical test of our work is how it validates, affirms, clarifies, challenges, inspires, and confounds our communities. There is no award for that. But I can assure you, if there was, Red Skin, White Masks would win that award too. I know that this book comes from a place of profound love of Deda, Tindi, the Welade, Ekwa, Ori, the Krapo and Lisk families, and your own children and badass Dene revolutionaries, Swida and Hayden. I am so proud of you, and I am so proud of this book. And so it is with great honor that I welcome my comrade,